This session is dedicated to non-AOS members, those that might not understand the mission, the values, and the goals of the organization. My name is Jake Holdaway. I'm really excited to go ahead and get started in just a few minutes. But if you have any questions as we go through, put it into the chat. Diana's going to be there to help. And we'll have a Q&A after at the end, right?
Yes,
Oh,
there's definitely some time for question and answers. So drop them in, or towards the end, there's a hand feature. Feel free to raise your hand as your questions come up. So
really excited. Okay. Seeing so many different states come in, that's exciting. So exciting. So many different state health departments too. This is exciting. I'll put into context the grant announcement this morning and also help you understand your different state, where they're at, where each state is. Every state's in a different spot. Sure, there's a lot of questions about that.
well,
All
I
right,
say we go ahead and get started, Jake.
awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. For many of you guys have been hearing the name AoS thrown out loosely. I hate acronyms, and I want to make sure everyone understands kind of what's been happening the last 6 years. Now, I will say this presentation will only be successful and understood if we have two things. Uh, First, it does take a little bit to focus on this new AoS concept. It's kind of like seeing Google for the first time in that it's organizing information in a way that nobody's ever seen before. And so if you're transgenderly listening, sometimes you think that AOS is a platform, or you think that we're a software or something like that. And though AOS does buy software, we're definitely not a software platform. And the second thing that people need in order to be successful in the presentation is, and I don't know how else better to describe it, but your light for public health needs to be turned on. And I want everyone to remember back when they first started in public health. And it can be grueling, to be honest with you. Your battery, especially going through COVID, can be drained. It can make it so you lose hope sometimes, or that things won't change. And I know many of us came into this profession hoping to make a change, or to make an impact, or to further and improve lives. And I'm very proud of the AOS board and its mission and what it accomplishes. And so as you walk through this, think about this of how we could get to that next level. I'm first going to talk about the problem that AOS is, why it was organized, and the national problem that we as a group felt needed to change, that public health needed to have a transformation, if you will, but it needed to move forward. And so you kind of have to see it from a national perspective. So take yourself out. You might work for a state health department, you might work for the CDC, or you might work for a local rural health department. But just take a minute and look at it from a national perspective. Across this nation, we have over 3,000, and let's make sure we record this. Are we recording?
We
Okay.
are.
We have over 3,585 independent and sovereign local health departments that collect primary data, or what we would call survey data. I'm going to define that primary data, but you might call it an observation, a questionnaire, an evaluation, a survey. We're going to collect data, right? And as an organization, as an independent sovereign health department, whether you're one of the 50 states, or whether you're a local health department, the 3,585, prior to the Academy of Science forming, would go out and purchase their own survey software or form builder or data collection tool. And they would house that behind some login somewhere, virtually hiding it from all the locals in their state, hiding it across their state health department doesn't have access to those tools and measurements. The state association doesn't. And we're the nation was set up that everyone would just have 3,585 data silos. There would be, and what we would do is we would send these measurements up to Washington, D.C. through our county commissioners. And this is where the problem started. 20 years ago, I was friends with the president of NACO, Don Stapley. When he became the president of NACO, and for those that don't know or aren't familiar with NACO, it's the National Association of Counties. It's the county commissioners that represent you. They would focus in on very different challenges before Congress and present our public health problems, right? And if you could imagine Don at that time assuming to become the president of NACO and having 3,585 unique measurements being sent up through our county commissioners, and then looking at, let's say, vaping or tobacco or whatever public health problem we're talking about, we're going to have 3,585 unique and independent measurements that are completely different, that can't be dashboarded, benchmarked against each other, because not only the form is different, the methodology behind it is different. And as county commissioners, they're going to look at that and they're going to go, well, wait a second, my county counts different from this county, from that county. So if I'm in Kansas, which has 100 health departments, there's going to be 100 unique ways to measure vaping in schools. That loses credibility, right? It loses, we're not speaking as a united front. It stops our ability from scientifically debating or whatnot. And so early on in my career, I was a young kid, we would be getting these measurements from across the counties and local health departments. And you'd just look at them and you would say, wait, why isn't this more organized? Why aren't they calibrated? How do we solve this problem? And so we'd have some really deep discussions about why is our infrastructure not as organized? Well, to get into the problem, like I mentioned earlier, every local health department would start by just collecting with paper, right? So before the internet came around, we would all collect in paper. Soon we moved up to Excel, and now, we're all in these different data collection tools. Now, all of them do virtually the same thing. They all have the same question types, multiple choice and different things. They all have the same distribution, like SMS text messaging, QR code, a web link. They all have the same reporting, downloading reporting or whatnot, but the problem is they are all written in a different code. So if I'm a underfunded health department in Kansas and I create something in SurveyMonkey, and I go to trade it with somebody that has a license to Survey Pro or Qualtrics or something like that, it's designed in a different code where I cannot trade it like a baseball card. Like I can't trade it and upload it because it was created in a different file format. So that's the first problem, is our inability to share. If we can't share across our state quickly, we then have to redesign and spend hundreds of hours to be able to do that. So that's the first political problem. And AoS not political, Democrat, Republican. It's political, and we haven't agreed of a common code to be able to share. And I don't know how old everyone is here, but you might not know, but when the internet was formed, we had to vote on transmission lines. We started first by agreeing on, we're going to do dial-up. And that first iteration wasn't very successful because we wanted to be on the phone at the same time, right? So we had to then identify, and throughout the years, the internet has improved, standards have gone better. We're at Cat 5, Cat 6. We're able to now improve because we agree on a standardized internet platform. In local public and state health, we've not agreed upon this. We've decided to be siloed and to work amongst ourselves. And instead of identifying what software we're going to use, we're going to go to the largest associations, whether it be NACHO or CSTE or the American Public Health Association. So we're going to come together to discuss the various problems that face local public health. But in the end, what we've ended up doing is just going home, buying our own tool, our own code, and creating it in that code, and never putting it in a common code that we could share. The second problem is that we're not putting it into a common, and this is a political decision. We're not coming together and saying, why don't we agree on a common repository or a common state library? Why don't we put it together and who should hold that library? AoS is simply coming into every state and saying, can we make a decision to work together? Where should that library be housed? Should it be the state? As a local group, let's make that decision. Should it be the state association? There's 31 state associations of 50. Some states don't have state associations. Okay, so then let's go to the next. Is there a large local health department that could help us, or a university? Creating an AoS chapter and identifying that allows all locals to come together and to share those tools. Some of the other threats to public health that face in stopping this problem, and if we don't come together to solve this problem, is number one, knowledge drain. If we just hide our tools in these independent repositories and these logins, we have some of the brightest minds, especially during COVID, that are creating these tools, and they're in their SurveyMonkey account or Google Forms account. And when they go to leave, we don't even know where they are to be able to share with locals. Tech companies is a threat as well. Their business model is that everybody should go out and buy a repository, a login. We should have 3,585 buying opportunities. AoS is stopping and saying, whoa, we will buy technology. We'll buy as much as we need. But what we don't want is data siloing. We want to build a free and national public library of local health department measurements and make it free for anybody and accessible to them. The other thing is a lack of interagency collaboration. If we can't see what all of our locals across the state are measuring, we're going to log into our tool and just create a tool because we can't search a state library. We don't have that visibility in our software. And so if I can't see that it exists, I know we all do the best that we can in calling each other, like, do you have this? Do you have that? Like Carol talked about, but we had to get to a better place to be able to see those measurements. And I'm not just talking about horizontally sharing what we call across locals. We're talking about vertically sharing with states. Can states share their measurements and tools with locals? And can locals share their tools with states? And where does the CDC fit in? And how can we improve that interagency sharing? The other thing that AoS decided and we needed to focus in on is the funded versus underfunded local health departments. Many of you, about probably 50, 60%, have the resources to be able to buy a HIPAA compliant data collection survey tool. About 50% of you don't. So do you not get to collect data in a HIPAA compliant way? Are you having to do this by yourself? How do we level up and make sure that there's a standard, but we don't leave those people behind, those locals, tribes, and rurals that can't do that? The next is underfunded state associations. In many states, we do have really well-funded state associations that are our partners, MELF and KPHA and CALD, Kansas, Kentucky, Michigan, and others, Colorado, that have come in and said, we don't have a public library of measurements. We see AoS as a partner to be able to hold a public library, and we vote as a group, hey, can we have the state association be that chapter and be the holder so everyone knows in the state, this is who's going to hold the library, and we're all going to be in the same code. There's also a threat, even though they're very helpful for AoS in many circumstances, is consultants creating methodology of saying, hey, this is how you measure this problem over here in the state, but I own that measurement. You can't share it unless you pay for it. And we're creating a measurement silo instead of trying to come together and to debate and to try to find that agreement. And I would ask you, how long is our nation, back up and think about this problem. How long is our nation going to measure 3,585 ways with 50 states and come out and say, vaping is going to be measured this way. No, vaping is going to be measured this way. We're all going to create very similar forms, but we're never going to calibrate them. For that purpose and this reason was the Academy of Science forming. I'm very proud to be from the beginning. I'm not the founder. I helped organize the first 50. 25 of them came from NACO counties, or the National Association of Counties. The other 25 came from NACHO. And we sat down in that first meeting and we said, we're broken. We had to realize like this isn't working. And are we going to be creating these types of data silos? And the first thing we did is we sat down and we wrote out our values to be able to fix this nation. We believed that an academy of science needed to be formed. So let me walk you through why these values have got us to where we are today and where it will take us in the future. So first off, we all believe as members that we need to reduce measurement duplication. Seems pretty easy, right? But why not we can do this by every single time a measurement is created, a survey, a tool, an instrument, let's all put it into the state and national library so that somebody else isn't recreating the wheel. That doesn't cost us anything, right? It just is, are we thinking about others in my state, in my region? And why can't my state association ratify these values, right? And in every state chapter, they've taken this back, these AoS values back to their state association. And they said, how can we solve this problem? Can we ratify AoS values? The next is technology independence. We believe that a technology software company should not own this national library, nor should Jake, nor should the locals, that it should be free, should be available, that these methodologies should be documented and organized in a way so that there's visibility. Third is a steward of measurement. We believe that we should change our feeling of, hey, this was developed in Maricopa County or Ottawa County or some of our largest health departments with taxpayer dollars. Instead of feeling like we own this as Maricopa, why not have a system of preserving this measurement, this survey, this tool, and being a steward of it and trying to grow its acceptance, trying to grow people using it, trying to come together on how a particular problem is measured. The next is we felt that scientific debate and disagreement could improve in many ways. In many states, there was no monthly sync for local health department data collectors to come together and to debate. And so in each state, we come together and vote and say, can we use an existing work group, an existing task force, or do we need to create our own group, an AoS chapter, so that monthly we can come together and tell each other what measurements did we create this month, ask each other what do I need this measurement or whatnot, have an accounting of what's out there, present each other our measurements, and also come together to try to find out what peer review means. I'm very sad to say that when we started, almost every state did not have a peer review process for locals. We were all just going out and creating our tools, doing the best that we could with the limited ability that we had. And let's take into account, many of our locals are extremely underfunded, especially our rurals. So how do they get that peer review? So coming together as a chapter saying, this is the best of my ability. What does peer review look like? And I'm very proud to say that many state chapters during our AoS chapter meetings, as a group, have voted and identified this is the best way we think we should peer review this. And as a national organization, we're trying to identify and help that process in solving this. AoS doesn't make that decision. We help support that decision of our local chapters so that we can identify those best practices. One of the next values is every local health department matters. In the past, it was these local health departments had the resources to buy a survey software and had the capacity and staff to develop tools. Whereas the underfunded locals, rurals, didn't have they couldn't even purchase software. From the beginning, AoS made the decision to look for every way to provide survey software at no cost or to eliminate it. And we're very proud to say that more than half of our AoS members currently don't pay anything for AoS membership, for the library, or for the software, because we've come together to organize, to advocate, and look for grants. And I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. So none of you guys are here in a sales pitch. You guys are all here to think how you can solve this problem in your state by using these values. The next is change agent. For those that have been in local public health or county, work for many years know that new problems come forward like COVID or vaping or the opioid overdose epidemic. When those problems come forward, instead of everyone going to a conference and then coming home and creating their own measurement in their own login, why not present that problem initially right at the AoS chapter meeting, allowing the CDC to come in, the CDC knowing where they can go, allowing the state knowing where they can go, and having that monthly meeting so we can disperse quickly our measurements, but also debate those measurements, and that it's systematic throughout the country so that we can share these tools and have a common repository. That's huge. Public procurement excellence. This has to do with my background. I've been trained by the National Institute of Government Procurement, and I've done some of the largest buyings in the nation in my history. I knew that in order for this to succeed, we needed to create a buying committee. And we're very proud that in every AoS state chapter, the board member in every state is usually selected by their state association to be their representative. But they will pick somebody to be on the buying committee, what software we should use. And I'll talk to you about the results here in just a second. But having each state sit on a buying committee when we do an RFP or a request for proposal to identify what software we should use. And I'm very proud, AoS doesn't even select the software that we've decided to use. The board does, the membership has decided. Just like the internet lines, we started in dial-up and got better. Currently, we use Alchemer. We didn't start with Alchemer, we started with Qualtrics. But if in 2 to 3 years, if Alchemer doesn't get better and there's a better software and it needs to get improved, and maybe there's more financing in local public health, heaven forbid, we don't know. But if we could the buying committee make a better purchase, or could we add different features to that software? So if you serve on a buying committee, thank you. United, we succeed. This is very important. One of the most difficult problems in local public health is advocacy once we've collected that data. And if you could imagine everyone, like in Kansas, let's go back, let's say there's 100 health departments in Kansas, right? They're 100% state, all of them are AoS members. Now that we've standardized like the annual community health assessment, 100 health departments are now using or could use the standardized community health assessment that we've created in that state, having a political agreement. So now we are united in talking about that measurement. That means that when we go from county commissioner to another, it's a common tool across that state. And so we're able to advocate, educate the citizenry as a group, as opposed to doing this. That burden was on the individual local health department. They were creating their own tool. Hey, let's think how to measure this. And then they were going out to their county saying, hey, this is how it's measured, when really they were the only ones measuring it that way, right? And so the weight of and burden of that was on just their individual shoulders. So coming together in a monthly meeting is key, because we can bring the brightest of minds, you guys, into a meeting and try to hold that debate as best as possible. The next is measurement, acceptance, and adoption. This means that if you become an AoS member, we ask that everyone try and look at the National Library. We have over 4,600 tools into the National Library now, coming from, 753 local health departments. And so before creating it, let's not create another tool. Let's see what we've found so far. The next is uniting measurement transparency. This is very important. As an AoS member, when we come in, from the beginning, whether it's in draft or we're starting to work on it, whether it's a completed or a template, as AoS members, we just are committed to each other these are the tools that I use, and this is the methodology that we follow to be able to collect that data so that we can be transparent amongst ourselves. And then lastly, measurement simplicity. This is very important. Our data is going to be presented to lay individuals, whether those be citizens or county commissioners or legislators. And so when we're developing our tools, to the best of our ability, can we make them understandable? Can we think about how is that? And can we debate that around the group as we try to find scientific agreement on how a local public health department should be measuring this. And so after forming these values, the Academy of Science was formed with the help of, by that time, we had grown to 3 state health departments with 3 state associations and to 150 local health departments at that time. And we just said, look, we're going to have a national library, a state library. Once forming the 3 goals and phases of the Academy of Science, and the business side of things is we have to reduce, and I'm very grateful to add in there, eliminate costs for data collection. We do this by 3 different ways. One of the announcements today being the ELC grant, but other grants. There's other CDC grants that we've won. By being stewards of our money, our very limited money, I will say. We knew from the beginning that buying in bulk would get us further. As a group forming a buying committee, we did the Costco approach. And, in the beginning, we started with 50. We didn't get that great of a price. Then we went to 100, now buying for 750 health departments. If anybody's been to Costco, you get a better price. So presenting those results a year ago past December, so 13 months ago, we organized the buying committee again for the 3rd time. And we got better results the 3rd time because we were buying. The finalists in that effort for software, and again, all software is evaluated. We have our members always in monthly. Are there new form builders coming out? Are there new technologies, AIs, new question types, new different things like what should we be using? From that, we whittled the buying committee, and I led that effort with the states, identified 3 main users, SurveyMonkey, Alchemer, and Qualtrics. Alchemer, if you were to go on the website right now, is $1,900 for their HIPAA compliant enterprise version, and SurveyMonkey for their enterprise version is also $2,000. Because we committed to buying over 750 of these licenses, AoS Buying Committee was able to secure it for only $325. That is a huge reduction. And we're able to present these costs to our state health departments and saying, we help AoS, I meet with all states and I say, hey, look, this is the problem. Our locals need to share. These are our values. Look at what we've done just with a group. Is there any way you could pitch in with grants or something so that we have a state library? That's about a third of what we do. And when they see these results, and that's why the CDC made the announcement today with the ELC grant, they go that you're doing this with less money than what we just spend for the technology. That's about 1/3 of what AoS does. The second half is organizing the state library. So in our monthly chapter meetings, as we grow, we make a vote where the state library is going to be held, and we identify 1 state librarian. There is a state librarian identified in every AoS state chapter, and we hold a monthly state librarian meeting, and we vote where that library is going to be housed, how it's going to be indexed, so that every state librarian knows where to find tools, and also how our members will know how to find those tools. Think about how easy that is. So when we onboard an AoS member, we come in and say, this is the tool that everyone uses. And if you create a tool, this is where it will be in the library, and we're indexing it for you. So they can query and look through that. And I'll show you that here in just a second. We also organize and index the National Library. We're holding a naming convention in a couple months about how to name these and what categories we should be having. We've already identified those. And we also hold the state librarian training. This coming year, we're going to be onboarding many new states, and states will, in many cases, support or provide a state librarian. Why do state health departments, why are they coming into the AoS movement? Because the states want the other states' measurements, and AoS is making that happen, right? So by them providing a state librarian, it's like, hey, I can go over to these states and see these state measurements. I've never been able to see that. We've always housed them in our own different, repository, and so coming together is huge. We're very grateful for the many states, the state of Kentucky, Kansas, Michigan, Minnesota, Colorado, soon to be Wisconsin, and many others as they vote, where they have somebody that is supporting their locals and indexing and organizing those tools. And I organize that as well. The last part of the AoS membership is AoS leadership. So holding the monthly board meeting, going through our buying committee, organizing those tools, and also our lobbying efforts. I spend a lot of time representing the organization as their lobbyist or advocate to help protect AoS values, to strengthen AoS values, to be able to go through and do that. As an organization, we've made public our strategic goals and objectives of what we want to accomplish in 2024, 2025, and 2026. If we're going to go out and ask for the public preparedness grant or the ELC grant or others, or have states, we've got to be organized in saying these are our objectives. So we want to enhance measurement transparency and collaboration for all local health departments across the country. We want to promote technology independence, connectivity, and efficiency for any local or tribe that wants to be in. And we want to foster equity and inclusion for rural and underfunding local health departments. And going back to our goal of making or eliminating costs, our state partners, many, I think 9 different states have come, state health departments have come forth and funded their AoS state chapter. And it's actually been a cost reduction because of the buying in bulk, but also CDC grants. So hopefully you were able to read that in the main page of that announcement. But through our group efforts, 750 of us, in 2004, ELC was able to become aware of the local health department Academy of Science through our board, state associations like MELF, CALD, KPHA, many state associations. If your state association doesn't know about AoS, talk to them, because all we are is values. We're just representing and trying to solve this problem and bring resources in. ELC feels, and just to read this to make sure it's word for word, but ELC feels that AoS could present an opportunity for some of ELC recipients to further enhance public health coordination and collaboration. Some EL recipients have already used the cooperative agreement funding. They started in January for this purpose. In ELC's most recent round of recipient monitoring calls, all ELC project officers are raising awareness of AoS values or AoS and the option for recipients to go through and do that. And so if in a state we're not able to get a grant, yeah, there is a $1,000 AoS membership, like we started in the good old days. But every year as we add another AoS state, the chapter will find out when we get a state grant or CDC grants, and at that day or month, we'll let you know and say, hey, we can actually refund membership for your software for membership costs, and we'll refund the 300, 600, or 900, whatever, wherever you're at in your cycle. And those grants are usually 2 to 5 years long. And we'll let you know, hey, for the next 3 years, there's not going to be any data collection costs. And that's how winning together and doing this as a group is done. We also, for 2024, the state librarians came together, and this problem started to arise in 2023 with the growth of AoS, where we had so many state librarians that we needed leadership at the national level and indexing. And instead of creating 50 data silos, just even having state chapters is awesome, but we needed to index across the national level. So we put forth amongst our members of organizing and hiring a national librarian to go through and do that. I'm not going to spend all the time in here, but some of the problems we've identified is when a state librarian is onboarded from a local health department, organizing them so that they sync with other states, and we're voting on how to index our tools. Next, we feel that a national survey school is necessary. More than half of our AoS members have never gone through any formal survey design school, yet they have been entrusted to collect data, but never gone through any type of formal training. So Kansas, Kentucky, and Michigan and Minnesota have already started survey school, but we want to make sure that curriculum is aligned. And so this national librarian would go through and do that. And we've already got indications that a green light that this will be funded this year. So we're positive about that in being able to service. And again, AoS members don't pay for state librarians or national. It's because of the work that we've been able to go through and do. Now, there's going to be more. I can't tell you as AoS has grown, we did not envision doing all of this. It was the AoS chapters coming together with a problem saying, I'm out in an island. I have no visibility. I don't have access to state survey tools. I don't have access to my locals. I want access. And like Carol said in the keynote, it's improving that relationship to be able to do that. I'm very proud to say that this past December, we celebrated over 4,600 tools and instruments into the National Library. And we were able to bring in 6 different CDC divisions and 21 new states to come in and see that effort. So let me shift gears. That's a lot of information. And if you're not paying attention, you might think that AoS is a software. And that's why I say kind of for the first time when someone sees AoS, they go, I don't really understand the movement in organizing this. And so hopefully, if you need to see this again, let us know. But let me walk you into that. Because of this, AoS holds a chapter meeting in 21 AoS states. Tomorrow we'll be holding the Arizona chapter meeting. Yesterday we did the Michigan AoS chapter meeting where and we have 100% states like Michigan, Kansas, Kentucky, and many others that are 100% states. This is a dedication. We're stopping for 30 minutes in that state. What tools were created across our members? What tools do you need? We're doing national updates, indexing stuff, and sometimes some presentations. We're allowing the state health department to come in. Maybe they have tools as well. These are our tools. This is where we're at. And also any issues. I loved what Carol said there. The AoS chapter is not just to index tools, but it's to have a conversation. And many times we have to calibrate these tools. Many times the chapter needs to create a work group and say, hey, we found 5 community health assessments. They're very similar. Let's get these 5 people together and find if they can find an agreement on this methodology, report back to the group. So how should we index this for you guys? Sometimes it's bringing the state association into the chapter meeting and being recognized as the library for the state association. And sometimes it's getting the work groups of the state association, not just coming together to talk, but coming together to debate the measurement and then put that measurement into the library so all work group people in that state association have access to that tool. So AoS monthly meetings are a key component to the Academy of Science. The next is Alchemer. So hopefully through this presentation, you're able to understand that we are not Alchemer, but we purchased this software for now. This is what we use now. When somebody becomes a member of the Academy of Science, if you're a local health department, and we can't access that data and we cannot share their data. No AoS member, if you guys join, are going to get access to your data or live surveys, and you're not going to get access to theirs either. However, if you're a state health department or you are a national librarian like me, Faith, or Jolie, we have 3 of us, we are identified as a national librarian. So we can create tools and projects, and we can create the national library. And so we can see a template of your tool. We do not have access or the authority to download your data, view your data, access your data in any type of way. So you're HIPAA compliant. But as a state health department, that's huge. It gives you the ability to come into the National Library. So let me show you the National Library view from a state librarian point of view or from a national librarian. So you can come in and you can see currently right now, We have over 4,630 tools, and they're coming from across the nation. So you can see Onslow County is coming in here for some sort of test. We've got a food safety illness reporting out of Toledo Lucas. We've got some JRA survey coming out of North Carolina. So anyway, customer satisfaction coming out of Wyandotte County, Ohio. So as a national librarian, we download this on a monthly basis, and we put this into the National AoS Library Google Sheet. We wish we were underfunded, more funded, and maybe had a better, but Google Sheets has worked really, really well. The Google Sheet keeps all 4,000 tools, and it helps us, and we're doing a naming convention right now, and we've created what categories this tool resides in. And then after we create it, we say, is this tool in use? Is it draft? So is it ready to go, or is it just being drafted? Tool in use means that this tool is now live and it's being used and we could share it. A template means the state chapter has come together and said, this is a tool we should be sharing. This is a great tool. I recommend it. Let AoS librarians, state librarians, so it's a way for us to communicate. Then we have the author of who is that librarian, and then we have the test link of who it is. So you guys as members, or all of our members, can go in and click on that link and they can go, yeah, let me go through and look at that tool of what we want it to be. Here's a long COVID survey. This is one of our more widely used long COVID survey result. And Ben created this. And if I like this tool, all I need to do is go to my state health department or state librarian and say, please give me this survey ID number and put it into my account. And we can quickly search on that ID number, long COVID survey, and we go, yeah, let me place that into your account. Do you want we always give the copy of the report. Again, this is a copy. This isn't taking the live survey. And then we can come in here and look at all of our AoS members, all of our states, all of our locals are all listed here. So it's very easy for us to just come in and say, yep, you're Jasmine County, click on start. We will tell them to refresh, and a template of that tool is sitting there waiting. All they've got to do is go and change the logo, and change maybe a little bit of wording if they want. They can change it if they want to. And let me back up. We love Alchemer. They've been a great vendor. However, I've said this before. Qualtrics had the same question types. SurveyMonkey had the same question types. Survey123 probably didn't, but they were close. All of these form builders, their business model is that everyone buy these licenses at retail and just make a decision to do this by themselves. Alchemer is great in that it was, evaluated by everyone and it felt like, hey, but the thing that I would tell you about Alchemer is a little bit different is, and you'll learn if you watch other sessions today, is that we had one opportunity for a really rural and underfunded health department to say, what are all the things that it could do? Could it be a form? So you'll notice that survey, it's not just a survey, but it can do forms, polls, quizzes, and other things that are available to do it. We also needed it to have all distribution types, like the buying committee wanted when you serve, I'm just going to walk you through here real quick. You build your survey, you style your survey, you test it. When you go to share, everyone needed the ability to collect offline. In some of our rural communities, they don't have internet access, so be able to collect data that way, or with a QR code, like paper, still going through and doing that, or kiosk mode for like a clinic, be able to embed it on their website or do web intercepting. And then obviously more traditionally, just get a link or do SMS text messaging. So we're really on an enterprise platform and allowing all of those tools. In our chapter meetings every month, we ask, how is the vendor doing? And sometimes they'll see a different feature on a different platform and we'll go and say, hey, we need to get this feature added. We are the 6th largest client for Alchemer. So every month we have someone that attends our meeting from the design side of Alchemer because we spend so much money with them. And we say, hey, we need this added. And obviously on the 3rd year, if it's not as good or they don't keep up to date, then we would the buying committee would evaluate if they're not the vendor to hold the National Library. So that is Alkmaar. So I've focused most of our conversation today on what we would call a template level library, meaning a complete tool that we're sharing, like a community health assessment or a foodborne illness project. As the nation starts to work together and fill up the AoS library, and we start to get stuff, we're starting to create template libraries for states. So you can come in and see the state of Kentucky Health Department with their full-time librarian is indexing their tools. You can see that they have accountability performance management, CHIPS and CHAWS. They've broken it out into maternal, child, and family and workforce development. You can also see the state of Kansas Health Department State Library and where they're starting to organize their administrative surveys. And this is where the problem has come in with that national librarian is we need to start indexing state health departments and keeping them organized so that when someone calls from another state, it's like, yeah, we have this. This is how that state does it. Here's the tool. Here's the methodology. And we're documenting that so people have the visibility into these tools. But also, we see a future not very far away where we're now, because we can study you, we can say these are the 20 people that are doing, let's say, school vaping. These are the 20 state health departments that are helping their locals do vaping in schools. Let's all get in the same room. All of you guys, let's talk about these methodologies. Let's hold a convention at CSTE, or let's hold a meeting at at NACCHO. Let's go to the American Public Health Association and say, hey, look, guys, we're finding these. You guys are the brightest of minds. You're talking, you're having these conferences. Here's it. Can we form this? Can we support this? And then can you come back and let us know which one is the one we should be recommending? So we're starting that standardization movement can happen. Now, above and beyond the state chapters, we have what we call a question level library. What we mean by that is as we have worked together, sometimes we don't need to standardize an entire project or a template. We need to standardize ethnicity or race or quality of life. And so state librarians and every AoS member, when they're, let's say this quality of life survey right here, it's beautiful, very nice, clean. This is out of the state of Kansas. A local health department says, hey, spent 20 years, this is the best quality of life question. And they bring it to the chapter and they say, hey, I need this. All they have to do is click on that survey as a member, and they can come and submit that question to their state library. I'm just going to name it Jake's favorite question for right now. And I'm going to add it to my Kansas Community Health Assessment. I'm going to unlink it and click on save. And by doing so, I, as an AoS member, have submitted that question to the state librarian for review. Hey, I think, so as a chapter, we can bite that off. How do you ask education level? How do you ask satisfaction? You know, there's a lot of things where we're holding debates. Once it's submitted, it goes over here to the research library, and a global library is worked, and you can see the states that are starting to organize these. And so I can go in here to Kansas CHA, and you can go through and see all of the tools that they have developed. And the state librarian and the state health department can organize these. They can delete it, rename it. And that's why we have so many state health departments that are working on this AoS movement of organizing all of their divisions, but they're also organizing all of their tools that they think should be for locals. And locals have access to those tools. We're working together and it doesn't cost us anything. I mean, that's why this is a political decision. AoS is do or do we not want to work together? And how do we want to work together? Don't we want to work together in a better way? AoS is not saying this is the way quality of life should be measured. We never get into any of that. It's bring the bright minds together, hold the debate, document it, and this is what we know, and let's make it available to everybody, right? How would an AoS member use that library? When they're building the survey, we now have this add-on where it says question. This is where you'd get an empty question, right? And they could go, there's all these different question types. But if they wanted to add a question from the library, they would go question library. They would pull it up. By default, we have many libraries that are forming. So they would come into Kansas CHA, and they would be able to pull in that quality of life question like I asked before, click on save, and it'll pull that template directly into their survey. So again, there's two libraries. There's the question level library, and then there's the template library, the national library with all of the 4,600 tools that we have right now. So with that, I'd rather pause. Oh, the next thing that I need to going back to that Google Sheet, I need to show one more thing. As we work in the Google Sheet, when we find a tool like here, Ben Mendez, man, he's one of the smartest minds in doing out of Southern Nevada that built this long COVID survey. We always recommend when you query the Google Sheet and looking for things, you either call us, hey, I'm looking for a long COVID survey, I'm looking for this. As a national librarian, me, Faith, and Jolie have the privilege, and I mean that sincerely, we're the only ones that get to attend the 21 AoS state chapters. So we see some of the brightest minds in Michigan or Minnesota or Wisconsin, just different states, you know, and we're able to say, yeah, this is coming up, this is where we are. But we always recommend you talk to the AoS member. So down below, you'll notice we have AoS videos. These are our past conferences, different trainings and stuff. You'll notice every AoS state member is in the directory. So from Arizona to Colorado, AoS is exploding in terms of our membership. You know, when you join, we get your name, your agency, your name, title, email, phone number. So it's very easy for someone to find. So I would just come over here to Nevada, get into Southern Nevada, talk to Ben, epidemiologist. I can email him. I'm an AoS member. I'm in Kentucky. Hey, we want to do long COVID. Ben, when did you start? John Hopkins was the one that helped them build this long COVID survey. It's fantastic, been nationally recognized. And what we really recommend you always talk to the AoS member, the author of those tools. And the future of AoS is obviously helping these AoS chapters. You know, we're putting all the tools in the same spot. We're helping our AoS chambers. What does peer review look like? How do we clean these out? How do we work towards standardization? Are we going to get down to one tool across the nation? I don't know. But what I do know is that we're systematically set up to work better by being able to share our measurements like baseball cards. We have measurement visibility into them. We have a state chapter and library, and we're all agreeing, and then the National Library. And I will tell you, it is significantly less time. If you back up, and for those that are at the CDC here today, or a state health department, I want you to put yourself in the shoe of a local librarian or a local data collector. If AoS doesn't exist, what they're doing right now is they're buying their own tool at retail that is empty, and they have to create every single tool or call around and try and find something. And they are going to recreate every measurement, their community health assessment, vaping. And every time a county commissioner or a legislator, somebody wants them to measure a tool, there is no organization that's holding and organizing those things. And we just don't agree with that. We think that we need to organize politically, you know, organize in a way, say, hey, we want to do this as a team. So with that, welcome to AoS, and hopefully that's helpful to understand the movement a little bit. I want to open this up for questions. So if you could put those in the chat, if you want to unmute yourself as well, just tell us, hey, I'd rather speak it to kind of go through that. And then I want to end with something to kind of help you understand kind of why there's so much passion behind AoS. But what questions do you have?
Awesome. Jake, caveat to that, you can chat, but it will be to Taylor or Jake. So if you can feel free to send them a message and they'll be checking their chats, or go ahead and unmute and we can go through any questions you have.
Yeah, mute. Maybe you have some questions about where your state is, or I don't know. There's lots of different things. Adrian, I see you unmuted. Do you have any questions? Yes, you want me to search the tool for blood. I can always do this all the time. We will query the database all the time for different key terms, different searching, blood pathogen standards. Um, yeah, we can search at any time. Great question. Okay, yeah, I could search for that as well. Oh, sorry, I didn't query the database that way. Oh, there's so many questions coming in. Sorry, I'm being bombarded. I gotta get back up there. Yeah, if you want to just send me an email, I will query the database on that question and we can look through the state and national librarian. Most time when we get a question, just so you can understand, whether you email your state librarian or me, we'll throw it out amongst ourselves. Hey, I'm looking for this tool. I'm looking for that tool. Has anybody done it? Where are we at there? I don't know why I can't copy on my page, but yeah, let's set up a time, Tina. Happy to do that. What state are you from? Awesome. If our state does not appear to be represented with a chapter, can we join with a neighboring chapter until, yes, that happens quite a bit. You know, we've got Iowa was that way for a long time, Minnesota, Michigan, all those, there were quite a few that started that way. We'll just say, hey, join this state. We'll meet with you. We'll sit down and tell you where we're at. Obviously, the CDC, the ELC grant people and other grants are actually talking to each state health department starting this month of the AoS values. And so until then, yeah, not a problem. Next steps to explore interest as a local health department and also interested if you are conversation with the state of, we have not spoken with the state of North New Jersey, but I have talked, I think we did train the ELC grant project coordinator for the CDC to have that conversation with them. I will tell you the problem in New Jersey is huge. Over the 6 years, I think I've had 45 local health departments find us and say, hey, I want a chapter started. How do we do this? And I help them advocate. I help them go to their, in many cases, guys, this problem exists because the state health department doesn't know that's how you're working. Almost every time when we get to the state, they go, are you kidding me? They just go buy something retail. There's no community of practice. They're not doing this. Or it's the state health directors, like the state association, they're so underfunded that they can't focus in on data collection. They're only focused in on the health departments or health directors and like policy, which is fine. At which point we just advocate, can we vote someone a chapter president? Can we create a work group? How can we solve this? What can we do? Can AoS come in? Do we need to find grants? How can we be an official chapter of your state? What can we do there? So great question. With respect to grant opportunities, does AoS provide funding to LHDs? Does it only provide information on which organizations we could apply to? So over half of our AoS members, when we start a chapter, we will put that as a goal to find a grant to pay for the software and AoS membership. So more than half of our AoS states don't pay anything anymore. And so we will sit down and help you understand. We've gotten NACHO grants before, a lot of different grants. And so as we start a chapter, that'll be one of our main priorities. And you might be the president, vice president, or whatever, and we really help organize that effort. So yeah. Where is Wisconsin in this process of joining? David Strong from the State Health Department has identified a work group. He has 30 health departments that are willing. I met with the state last week. They are looking about how to spend that. They have a grant money to be able for every health department that wants to join. And we already have members in Wisconsin already. I think we have 6 or 7. And so I can get you, Sabrina, if you just send me an email, I can get you David Strong to have you on the list there. So, and Tina, the Illinois Public Health Association and Jeffrey has voted to start an AoS chapter. They surveyed 92% of the members throughout every local public health in the state of Illinois voted in the survey that they wanted an AoS chapter started. I met with the state of Illinois yesterday, gave them an overview to bring them up to speed. This is like the 3rd time I was at the Illinois Public Health Association conference advocating for a chapter, and that's coming forward as well. So Is Ramsey County in Minnesota a part of the data collection? Ramsey is not. I did meet with them 2 years ago. I think Ramsey fell in love with a data collection software and at that time. But we've started a chapter in Minnesota, and MDH is presenting here today. Abby's our state librarian and organizing that effort. So talk to Abby on where they're at in the state of Minnesota. How long does the process take to join? 5 minutes. We do onboarding every Monday and Friday, but we can if you email me saying, hey, I need to get set up. Because we have grant funding, we don't need you to pay before you get started. We're set up good enough that we'll just send you an invoice. Or if you're from that state where we have a grant, I onboard you and I email the state and get the grant, and you guys aren't involved in it. So depending on the state, you might not ever get an invoice depending on the state. So how many local health departments do we have in Kentucky? Every single one of them. If you come into the membership of Kentucky, that's one of those states. They're a founding member. Elizabeth gave the keynote last year. She's fantastic. And we have 3 state librarians in the state of Kentucky. I would say that Carrie Kanya is a leader. And if you're a state health department, talk to the state of Kentucky. They have a culture that is winning. Thanks for coming in. Need to leave. Likely interested in helping with the new. Awesome, Paula. Send me an email. A lot of it is advocacy for that underfunded health data collector. It's just bringing awareness, like, hey, we don't have a community of practice. We're not working. We don't have a state library. So yeah, we would love the support. Could you reshare what the total? Yes, AoS membership is $1,000. 325 of it is for the software. About 300 is for Faith, Jolie, and I, and the other, so it's $1,000. It's all inclusive. And the board is the one that oversees the buying committee in that cost. So awesome. Tina, let us know where you're from. We need state librarians, especially if yeah, being a state librarian is awesome. Tina hit it. The reason being is they get to be kind of like us, where the state librarians get together once a month and we talk about how it's indexed, but we also know each other's tools a little bit more. So if you're a local health department and want to ask your health director, like, can I be the AOS state librarian and help in that, you just get to know all the tools, right? So yeah, people fight for that one. Yes, just send us an email if you need to set up more time. I know this is the first time many of you will see, if you're a state health department or a local wanting to support. Tennessee. Tennessee's a unique state. I would say 22 or 25, I can't remember, have approached us. We have some really good attendance out of Tennessee. In the state of Tennessee, in the conference last year, I believe we had 18 people represented. So we're at 21. I have 21 people that have identified the problem. I was thinking about bringing those 21 people after the conference to do kind of a let's talk about our problems and our relationship meeting. So about 21, I would say, are interested or have been involved. But we have some work to do there. I did submit them to the ELC grant people to have a conversation because of the amount of people that are there. So yeah. Have any state local members, and okay, I already got that one. This type of work is new to me, so it definitely is a learning curve, but I'm willing to learn. Awesome. Thanks, Micah. That happens. So if you're a local in Kentucky, yes, all you need to do if you're in Kentucky is send an email to me. I'll get you connected with Elizabeth and Carrie, and there's a grant waiting for you, and it won't cost you anything. We've won that advocacy battle, and you'll have access to everything. So, any other questions? Oh, all right. I'm gonna drink some Diet Dew real quick,
Yeah. Take a breather, Jake.
and
There's some,
I'm gonna end with some closing remarks.
well, there, real quick, we have 2 questions. Where do
Okay.
you see AOS heading in the next 5 to 10 years, and how can local health departments prepare for those changes?
this needs to be a grassroots effort. I fundamentally believe, and I'm grateful to have led this effort for from its beginning to its inception and where it is today. But I really believe for this nation to move forward, we need each chapter to strengthen their relationship with their state association. They need to strengthen their relationship with their state health department. For the science of public health to move forward, it's about coming together. AI is not going to solve this problem, nor should it. These are sovereign governments, sovereign locals, and sovereign states. But we all kind of feel like we can profess this is how it's measured, right? We could all stay by ourselves and throw up 3,585 independent measurements and say this is how it's measured, and we can fight each other. And we can see how the public will consume that data. I believe the future is empowering those. I have seen with my own eyes how many of the brightest of minds are finding each other because they couldn't find each other. They didn't know who else was putting their life work into that. And that's why I started the meeting with your light and candle in public health can be turned on. I know it can be frustrating because you are working in a data silo and it's hard to find out is this the right way to measurement or is my data so I get that. And so, but I know that the only way is having the right culture in every state. So I believe that that's the future. But I also know through these standardization efforts that our measurements are getting better. I know they weren't in a good place when we started in many states, and that's okay. We come where we're at. We just admit, hey, we haven't been standardizing, but where do we want to go? And so that's where I think it's our state chapters taking control. And if you look at the state chapters that are strong, we have many 100% state. That leadership is there now. But do we move forward without the other states? No. It's going back to our values, and every year it's looking at those values and even adding, are these the values that we should be fighting for? Um, because AoS is the values. It's not a platform. I mean, the end product is standardized measurements, but it's how we get there, right? So.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake. And last one, I know you touched briefly on this, but what strategies have you seen work well when engaging the local health communities or in initiatives like AoS, especially when it comes to fostering collaboration and buy-in?
You need humility, to be honest with you. So I think a lot of people feel that they might be afraid to speak up and say they're on an island or or understand that we're not as organized, right? And so I would say, and also understanding that your state association is underwater in many cases and can't solve this problem. And so it is frustrating. And so you have to, I mean, I'm an AoS advocate, right? I go out and I say, hey, what about the data collector? What about a public library? And they're, especially during COVID, they're fighting so many different things. Once they understand the AoS mission, they go, oh, this is easier. This is less work. And then it becomes a lot late. Like we're like it's like, oh, I'm just stealing from everyone, right? But that's what I would say is just approaching the executive director of the state association. In many cases, they've never been a data collector, so they don't know your problem. So it's educating them. Same thing with the state health department. They don't know, they've never worked at a local, so it's helping them understand it. But also, and I mean this in the nicest way, but right now, many in the CDC were unable to attend this meeting today because Congress, I mean, because the government, the president is shutting it down, right? Hey, and there's this, do I see value in this? AoS will show value. AoS will, if we have these values, public health will have value because we will bring the brightest of minds and we'll regain trust. We'll show where that is and they'll fund it. And I'm really grateful for all those in the CDC that have come in the last 2 years to go, this culture needs to be in public health. And so we all win when we have that culture. So, all right. How much time do I have?
You have still have about 15 minutes, so any final thoughts, any final questions?
No, I don't want to get sentimental or anything, but I do want to have some closing thoughts. Because I've led this from the beginning and I've met with a lot of data collectors, and I know I carry your burden. And I speak for a lot of AoS members when we go through this, but a lot of you might not have ever asked, why are we called an Academy of Science? Okay. The local health department is such an obscure name, right? A lot of people are like, I didn't even know what you did. um, Humans, in order for us to communicate and talk, we have to speak a common measurement language. And one of the first known ways of humans ever measuring was by a cubit. It was the end of a man, not a woman, a man's finger all the way to the end of its elbow. And when they were creating the pyramids a long time ago, they did that just with a cubit. It wasn't until hundreds of years later that they were able to see that Pharaoh, with a political decision, decided, hey, we're going to create a royal cubit and we're going to standardize it. And they did it off of his elbow. And different tribes and different people started to create standard measurements, but with different languages. And that moved any pyramid that was created with a royal cubit were created with the exact same size stone. And they've actually lasted longer than those stones that were created with just cubits. It wasn't for human mankind to move forward. It wasn't until the 1700s in measurement when a big standardization effort came forward. And many people don't know the story of the French Revolution, but in the 1700s, there were 800 cities in France, and they didn't speak a common measurement language. The metric system did not exist. And the king would use this in an unfair way against his people, and the people that were loyal to him, he would calibrate how he was measuring their gold and their land differently. And then when he would go to a different city, and those that he would measure differently depending on who was loyal or not. Finally, in the 1800s, when they created a road system, those cities started to communicate and talk amongst themselves. And they found out that the king was ripping them off. And so they threw a French Revolution. And those revolutionists overthrew the king. And they were, and a lot of people look at it as that was over taxation, which it was in a way. But it was actually on the unfair and untransparent way in which they were measuring. And those revolutionists did something very smart. Instead of coming in and putting in a new king and then saying this is the measurement, they organized the first Academy of Science. And that first Academy of Science brought one person. They didn't have internet at that time. They brought one person from every city throughout France, over 800 cities represented. They sat down in a room and they said, let's talk measurement. How do you measure land and how do you measure gold? Over the course of a couple years, that Academy of Science came forth and they said, we need to make it easy to understand. And that's why they did tens, hundreds, and thousands. And they published the first the metric system, right? Because France was able to speak a common measurement language, it slowly went throughout Europe. And today, even though we're in America and our construction industry doesn't use it, our entire scientific community does, right? They standardized on it, and so does our legal system, right? And that has brought so much like it really has brought the world together. Because of that, you guys all know that we put a man on the moon. They did this using the metric system. It involved a collaboration of over 400,000 people coming from over 2,000 different companies, universities, and government entities. Now, these people spoke many different language, coming from many different countries, Russian, German, and everything like that. However, all of them used and spoke the same metric system. And because of that, the world was able to put someone on the moon. We need that in public health. We need all of us to come together and put our measurements out on the table and organize them and index them. AoS isn't going to solve that problem, but those associations and those states are. They're going to be able to see and start to agree on better measurements and make them public. And that debate will happen. And I really believe that local public health, in order for us to move forward, and so do our members, we need to improve the way in which we measure and in which we share those measurements. So for that purpose, we have always been called the Academy of Sciences. We've wanted one person from every one of the 3,585 local health departments. And if they could do that in the 1700s in France without internet, they could come together and say, hey, this is how that's measured. We today with internet and Zoom can work better together and do that. And so that's why we're called the Local Health Department Academy of Science. So I just wanted to leave that with you is it's not done. People think that everything has been explored, everything has been done in the world. There's no more exploration to happen, and it's not true. The CDC, they want you. You could be an avenue for them to collect data. The state, they want you. You could be an avenue for them to collect data. You could give data up, they could give data. Why are we not doing that? And with that better AoS relationship and improving that relationship, that's how we're going to get discovery and really solve some things. So I'm proud, and I don't want to get emotional, but I am damn proud every single one of our AOS members that recognize these values and have been fighting for them because I know it's the way we go. So thanks, guys.
With that, thank you, Jake. Thank you for this presentation and your insights for leading really the charge in all of this. We have about 10 minutes, so we will now rejoin the main conference session. There will be a bit of a wait there just while everyone else finishes up. So feel free to go grab a drink, use the bathroom, answer some of those emails, take some time for yourself. So thank you all for participating in this, and we'll go ahead and close out this breakout room here soon.
Thanks, guys.